Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me for another video. I'd like to do a little series covering some shell programs, how they work, and some common use cases for them. I think that some exposure to these programs with practical examples can really start to help you think in terms of the shell as a way to solve problems. It allows you to link a problem in your head to some kind of tangible solution, like, oh, that's easy, I'll use grep or I'll use awk or whatever. Just some way of linking these utilities with more practical ideas. So today we're going to dive in and look at xargs and a little bit of piping too. So let's start with some basic piping. Cool. Part of the Unix philosophy is that programs should be able to communicate with each other using simple text streams. So a program should take input on what's called standard input and do what it does with that input and then output it to standard outputs, an in and an out. And this creates like a simple a pipe of data. So if I run a very simple command like ls, the output comes back to my terminal via standard output. Essentially, the pipe is attached to my terminal. So it goes through that pipe and then puts it out to my terminal. But it doesn't have to be. I can attach the pipe to the standard input of another program using the pipe symbol. So if I use ls and pipe it into grep, then I can search that command. I can search the standard output of the ls command, and then the standard output of my grep command is attached to the terminal, and that gets output instead. So we've essentially added another program onto the end of the pipe. So this allows us to take any type of input and convert it to any type of output we want. But there's a problem here. Not all programs take input from standard input, or they don't take what we expect them to take from standard input. So how do we use our nice piping system with those programs? Well, that's what xargs is for. What xargs does is it takes input from the standard input and composes a new command, or multiple commands, we'll get to that in a second, from standard input. So, okay, so what is this used for and how do we do it? Well, most of the time I find myself using xargs, it's because I have a file name or a list of file names, but I want to interact with the contents of the file. So let's have a look at a quick example. I have a list of files in this folder called file1, file2, and file3, and they basically look like this. Okay. What if I want to concatenate all these together? I want to join them all together into one file or one output. So what I could do this. I could do cat star, right? And that just, using the star, that uses bash globbing to just expand that to be all the files in the folder, and it just cats them together like that. Okay. Okay, great. But what if I want to concatenate these files in reverse order? I don't want to reverse the output. I just want the files to be ordered differently. How can I do this? Well, if we use cat star, like I have done here, we're at the mercy of bash's globbing order, which in this case is just alphabetical. So how could we start this? Well, first let's get a list of the files. Okay, with ls. Great. Now we need to reverse that list because we don't want the list to go in that order because that wouldn't achieve anything. So we want to reverse the list. So a couple of ways we could do that. We could pipe that into sort-r will reverse the file list. There we go. That's the same list, just in the other order. But a more simpler way is to just do ls-r. ls-r reverses the list. Okay, great. So what we can do now, we can just do ls-r and pipe that into cat. Oh dear, that doesn't work. It's just concatenated the file names. That's not what we needed. Cat is taking the text stream from standard output as it should, but standard input in this case is the file names. It's not the actual text we want to act on. But cat can take a list of files as arguments like this. Okay, so it can do it with a list of file names, but not from standard input. So essentially, we need to get the data from standard input onto the arguments list, and that's essentially what xargs does. So to do that, we can do this: ls-r cat into xargs cat, and that works, right? Also, all that's doing is moving our standard input to the end of the command, essentially. So the astute amongst you might have noticed that we could do instead this. Right, we can use substitution like that to put the output of the command on the end of cat, and that is what a lot of people would do in a script, right? And that works the same. But there's a couple of reasons you might not want to do this. Firstly, it's harder to read, in my opinion. Pipes are great because the logical flow is always from the left to the right. The stream is unbroken. You can read it from left to right as a stream without having to jump ahead to read things in brackets, right? It's just aesthetically and semantically better. But there is a more technical reason why you might not want to do this. Linux enforces a limit on the size of a command and its arguments, and Unix as well. By default, this is usually a quarter of the stack size, which is usually 8 meg. You can check yours with ulimit-s. Yeah, 8 meg. So if you're dealing with a large number of files and you're doing some operation on that list, like rm or cat or whatever, then there's a chance that the shell will shout at you and not allow it because the command becomes too long. But xargs is aware of that limit, and it will automatically break your command into multiple commands so that it will run. And you can actually enforce this if you expressly want xargs to do this. Let's say you have a list of files and you want to run a command on each of the files, okay, instead of the whole list at once. You can do xargs-n1, which limits the number of arguments xargs will allow per command to 1. If your list was in pairs, like a source and a destination, you could use -n2 to run the command pairwise. So say if it was a copy command or something, that would be with n2. One final point about xargs is that you can dictate how xargs composes the new command. All our commands so far have had the result just tacked on to the end of the command, which is the default. But by using -I and some string, you can create a token that xargs will replace. Usually a set of curly braces is used for the token. For example, imagine that you want to select a single file from D menu or something like that, and you want to copy that file somewhere. That would mean in CP it can't be the final command because the final argument is the destination. So that might look something like this. If I do ls into D menu, or I'm actually using Rofi, so let's use Rofi. And then I cat that into xargs-i. The curly braces there, that's our token. That's like what we're going to replace it with. And then we do cp, our token, which is the file that we're pulling from D menu, and to the new file what we're going to put it in. If I run that, I get a little Rofi menu like that where I can select the files. Let's say select file 2, and that will be sent to new file there, like that. Okay, that's about everything I can think to talk about. So if you like this video, please consider subscribing and smashing that like button and all associated activities like that, and I'll see you next time.